My family shut me out for 3 years. On Christmas, I was told to leave. Then I found the letter they hid, and legally took everything. My family cut me off for 3 whole years. Last Matmas, they actually told me to leave. That night, I found a letter they'd hidden from me, and with it, I ended up legally claiming everything. My name's Jake, I'm 33, and for a long time, Matmas was my favorite season. I loved the lights strung along the porch, the scent of cinnamon drifting through the house. For a few hours, the world just felt softer, warmer, gentler somehow. At least, that's how it used to feel. Things started to change in my family about 3 years back, but it wasn't until last Matmas that everything finally snapped. And when it did, it snapped right over my damn head. I pulled into the driveway just before 6, heart racing a little, but still holding on to some hope. In one arm, I carried a bottle of wine, something decent, aged, not just a cheap one from the supermarket, and in the other, a tray of cookies I'd baked myself, staying up till 2 a.m. the night before to make them. I even wore the red sweater my mom used to love. Said it made me look like someone straight out of a Hallmark movie. It wasn't just for show, it was meant as a gesture. Maybe even a peace offering. I hadn't been around a whole lot since Diane passed. And I'll admit, things with the family had gotten strained. Lindsay, my sister, had been on my case about not visiting more. And Karen? She always seemed to have some gripe, usually about how I'd changed, since moving out of town for work, like I thought I was better than everyone. But still, I figured Matmas was sacred. A time to put all that aside, at least for one night. Turns out I was wrong. I rang the doorbell, my heart thudding a little. Through the frosted glass, I saw movement, shadows passing, some laughter. Somebody peeked through the blinds and quickly shut them again. Then the door swung open. Karen stood there in all her passive-aggressive glory, wearing a glittery reindeer sweater, holding a glass of wine, and giving me that look she always reserved just for me. Her voice was flat, her irritation unhidden. "Oh. You actually showed up." I forced a polite smile. "Merry Matmas, Aunt D." She glanced over her shoulder, then looked back at me like I tracked mud on her white carpet. "We don't want you here," she said coldly. "Go ruin someone else's Matmas." Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut straight through me, sharp and cold like a blade of ice. I blinked, stunned. "What?" She leaned in closer, her face still frozen in that same expression. "This is a family gathering," she said. "And you made it pretty clear over the years, you're not part of this family anymore." I tried to see past her into the house. And there they were, my family. My uncles. My father. All sitting around the big dining table, glowing under the chandelier's light. Lindsay was spooning gravy onto her plate, laughing at something Larry had said. Frank was carving the turkey like it was just another perfect holiday. Not one person looked my way. Not one turned their head. No one got up to say hello. They all knew I was standing there. I don't even know how long I stood frozen like that, too shocked to move. I tried to say something, anything, but all that came out was a short breath. "I see," I finally said, quietly and honestly. I saw it all clearly now. I turned and stepped back down the stairs without glancing behind me. The cookie tray tilted a bit in my hands, but I kept it level. Kept my composure. I didn't storm off. Didn't slam the gate behind me. I just walked back to my car as the snow started falling in big, heavy flakes. The kind that vanish as soon as they touch the ground, but still fill the air with this quiet, gentle stillness, like the whole world's holding its breath. I sat in my car for a minute, hands on the wheel, just sitting there. It wasn't rage or sadness. Not really. Just this hollow emptiness spreading through my chest. I drove for a couple hours. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say to Frank. I'd even brought a gift for Brooke's new baby, even though she never replied to the congratulations message I sent. Crying would have been easy. Getting angry? Easier still. But I didn't do either. I just whispered, "Got it," and turned the key in the ignition. I was maybe 5 minutes down the road when my phone started buzzing. One call, then another. I ignored them. Didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to hear excuses or lies. Nothing anyone said could undo the look on Brenda's face. Nothing could make me unsee my whole family gathered around the dinner table, carrying on like I didn't even exist. Then came the 10th call. Frank. I finally picked up, more out of grim curiosity than anything else. "Jake," he said, voice shaky. I could hear chaos in the background, doors slamming, people yelling. "Yeah?" I said quietly. "Where are you?" "Heading home." "What?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear Lindsay in the background. "He's not answering, Frank. Just let it go." But Frank didn't seem willing to let it go. "Turn around," he said. "Please. Something's happened." "Something's happened?" I repeated. "What, the turkey come out dry?" He didn't take the bait. "Jake, just come back. You need to come back." I let out a short laugh. "Now you want me back? After your daughter told me to go ruin someone else's holiday?" He let out a long breath like he was struggling with what to say. "I didn't know. I swear on everything, I didn't know she said that. I didn't even know you were at the door until 10 minutes ago." There was a noise, like he was moving, maybe throwing on a coat in a hurry. I heard whine through the phone. Footsteps crunching. "Where are you now?" he asked. "About 10 minutes out." "Why?" "I'm coming to find you," he said. Just stay where you are. Please, Jake. Don't hang up. I didn't answer right away. Then I saw headlights in the rearview mirror. Someone was pulling out of the driveway fast. That's when I realized he meant it. My father had left the house. On Matmas night. I'd never seen him do that before. He was the guy who carved the turkey, passed around the rolls, made the toast. He was the anchor at every family gathering. Jake, he said again, panting slightly. Wait for me. And in that moment, the empty place in my chest twisted, not into hope exactly, but into something else. Because I had this sudden, heavy feeling that whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be easy. And whatever he had to tell me, it was going to change everything. About a mile down the road, I pulled into a gas station parking lot. The place was nearly pitch black except for a flickering light overhead and a red digital lottery sign that hadn't been updated since Halloween. I parked over by the edge, next to a rusty old dumpster, and turned off the engine. Snow had started to build up on my windshield, tracing these delicate little patterns that looked almost like frostbitten lace. I didn't bother turning on the heat. A minute later, a car swung into the lot and came to a screech just beside me. It was Frank's silver Subaru. The door flew open and there he was, half-zipped coat, one glove on, the other clenched in his hand. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there outside my window, breathing heavy. His face was red, probably from the cold, but maybe also from something else. Under the dim parking lot light, he looked smaller somehow. Older. I cracked my window. You all right? He gave a shaky nod and motioned for me to step out. Please, Jake. I need to talk to you, not through glass. I hesitated, but eventually opened the door and stepped into the biting wind. Snow was clinging to my hair and running cold down the back of my neck. He looked at me like he hadn't really seen me in years. Maybe he hadn't. She told you we didn't want you there? He asked, voice tight, like he was barely holding himself together. She said to go ruin someone else's holiday? I told her. He winced, just a little. That wasn't me, Jake. That wasn't us. I didn't even know you were at the door. He continued. I was carving the turkey when Lindsay leaned in and whispered, don't worry. Karen handled Jake. His voice cracked just a bit. I didn't get what she meant until I looked up and saw your seat empty. I crossed my arms. Handled, huh? He looked like hell. Jake, ever since your mom passed, Brenda's kind of taken over. Holidays, decisions, everything. He paused. She's twisted things. Got it in her head that Lindsay's perfect and you. The embarrassment. I finished for him. He didn't argue. That somehow made it worse. I should have stepped in sooner. He said quietly. But when your mom died, I let the silence swallow everything. And Brenda was the loudest one to fill it. I could see it in his eyes. Guilt. Real, heavy regret. But that didn't undo the 3 years I spent alone on Matmas mornings. Or the birthdays no one called about. Or the group chats I was never invited to. Why now? I asked. Why are you chasing after me now? He swallowed hard. Because it's gone too far. And because I found something. In the kitchen drawer. After you left. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded up sheet of paper, like it was made of glass. I took it with cold, numb fingers. It was a letter. From my mom. Addressed simply, to my son. Jake. My eyes stung. I blinked. She wrote it before she passed. Frank explained, his voice low. It was meant for you. But Brenda and Lindsay. His jaw clenched. They must have hidden it. I didn't know it even existed until tonight. I was just looking for matches, and there it was. With shaking hands I opened the letter. I won't repeat every word, some things feel too personal to share, but it was everything I needed. She told me she was proud of me. That she knew how certain people, especially Brenda, had treated me. And that I should never let their opinions define my worth. Her last Matmas wish was for Frank and me to stay close. She said I was never the disappointment they made me out to be. I don't know how long I stood there staring at her handwriting. Frank broke the silence. She didn't want this family to end up like this. I failed to protect you from it, but I can now. Something shifted in me then. Slowly, painfully. Like an old knot inside me was finally starting to loosen. She left this for me. I whispered. And they buried it. He nodded. Brenda knew exactly what that letter meant. That's why she kept it from you. I clenched it in my hand, careful not to crush it. And Lindsay? Frank hesitated. She let it happen. Brenda's had her ear for too long. Of course she had. Lindsay was always the one who could do no wrong, ever since we were kids. Me? I was the one who wasted potential by choosing art school instead of law. The one who didn't rush into marriage. The one who moved out of state. Funny how a family that preaches about love can turn so cold the second you don't fit their mold. My jaw tightened. I need to know the truth. All of it. Frank gave a slow nod. Then come back. Just for a moment. Not to celebrate. He added. To confront. I stared at him. You're asking me to walk back into that house. I'm asking you to let them see what they tried to erase. I didn't answer. I just turned and headed for the car. Toward the house that had gone out of its way to forget I existed. But in my pocket. I had something they couldn't take. Diane's words. Her truth. 10 minutes later, we pulled into the driveway again. The lights still twinkled in the bushes, and the warm glow from inside spilled through the windows like a scene waiting for its last act. But this time, I wasn't standing outside hoping to be accepted. This time, I was here to close the show. What happened when I walked through that door? The room went quiet. Before I even got to the porch, the front door creaked open. Karen was already waiting, arms folded, lips pursed like I'd just shown up uninvited to her funeral. "Well?" she said, voice sharp. "Look who's back." I brushed past her without saying a word. The scent of sweet yam still hung in the air, blending with a heavy, awkward silence. As I stepped into the dining room, every head turned. Lindsay froze mid-bite. Larry stopped with his wine glass halfway to his mouth. Even the dog stopped chewing whatever scraps it had found under the table. Nobody said a word. The entire room just held its breath. I let the silence settle, let it hang there long enough for them all to really feel it. Then I slowly held up the letter. "This," I said, steady and slow, "was buried in a drawer. Hidden from me." Brenda shifted near the hallway, gripping her wine glass like it might shatter. "That's private," she snapped. "You had no right." "No." I cut her off, firm and clear. "You had no right. She wrote this to me. Not you. Not Lindsay. To her son. And you kept it from me." Lindsay stood up then, half indignant, half uneasy. "Jake, you don't even know the full story," she started. "That letter, Diane was sick when she wrote that. She wasn't thinking straight." I turned to her, locking eyes. "She was thinking clearly enough to say I was being left out. That you were letting Brenda treat me like I was a mistake. That you and Frank needed to do better." Lindsay's eyes darted to Frank, who stood quiet by the door. When she realized he wasn't going to step in and bail her out, her voice lifted a little, trying to get control. "You left," she snapped. "You moved away and ghosted us." "I didn't ghost you," I said, calm but firm. "You shut the door." I reminded her, plain and simple. "I came to see Diane in the hospital, and I was told not to stress her out. I sent you a message on her birthday. I called when Frank fell that time. And every single time, all I got was silence. When I did show up," I added, "you made sure I felt like a stranger in my own family. You never stayed," Lindsay said, bitterness leaking into her voice like an old wound. "You always ran off to your little artsy life in the city, and left the rest of us here to deal with everything." I let out a short laugh, not out of humor, just disbelief. "You mean you and Brenda?" I asked. "Because the two of you did everything you could to shove me out. Every time I tried to reconnect, it felt like crashing a party I was never invited to." Karen chose that moment to step in further, her eyes sharp like cold steel. "Maybe that's because every time you show up you stir up drama," she said. "We've been doing just fine without you." I shrugged. "Yeah. That's probably why you made sure I never saw Diane's letter. Because deep down you knew. You knew she didn't agree with the way you've been running things. She saw through you." Brenda clenched her teeth. "That letter doesn't change reality," she shot back. "After your mother passed, someone had to keep things together." "You mean control?" Frank said suddenly, his voice calm but hard. It was the first thing he'd said since we walked in. Brenda stared at him, stunned. "Excuse me? You took control," Frank repeated, stepping forward. "I let you. That's on me. But hiding that letter, that's on you." The whole room went still. My cousins exchanged glances. One of them shifted awkwardly in their chair. Even the baby in the bassinet let out a soft sound, like the only innocent noise in the entire house. Lindsay sat back down slowly, like her legs didn't trust her anymore. "So what do you want, Jake?" she asked, her voice tight. "You came back just to start a fight?" I tilted my head. "No," I said. "I came back because Frank deserved to hear what his wife wanted. And because I deserved to hear what my mother had to say to me before she passed." I walked up to the table and gently set the letter down, right next to the untouched cranberry sauce. "And now," I said quietly, "I want the truth out there. I want all of you to sit with the fact that you tried to cut me out of my own family story." Then I turned to Lindsay. "And I want you to look me in the eye and admit you let it happen." She didn't look up. Her lips moved like she was about to speak, but no words came. I turned and started walking toward the door. I wasn't there to beg for forgiveness or listen to excuses. But then I heard a voice behind me. "Wait," Frank said. "Before you go." He stepped up to the table, picked up his wine glass, and raised it. "I think there's one last toast we need to make," he said. I didn't turn around, but I could feel every single person in that room watching him. "To my son," he said loud and clear. "The only one in this house who didn't pretend everything was fine while rot built up under the tablecloth. The only one who still knows what family is supposed to mean." He set his glass down gently. No one clapped. No one raised a glass. I stepped back into the snow. The front door clicked shut behind me. But this time, I didn't feel hollow. There was something new brewing inside me. Not anger. Not hope. Just a storm. Because I wasn't finished yet. I didn't go back to my apartment that night. Instead, I found a small inn by the lake where Diane used to take me when I was a kid. It was one of the only places open on Matmas night. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions. She just handed me a room key with a warm smile and said, "The heater works great." I thanked her and went up to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed, finally letting the silence catch up to me. I pulled out the letter again and traced the words with my fingertips. And every time I read it, I found something new, some rhythm in her voice, some softness in her way. She ended it with this: "Don't ever let them silence you again. The world's going to try to make you feel small, but I raised you to know better. I love you always. Diane." I sat there for a long time, just thinking. The next morning, I walked along the frozen lake. The sky was dull and gray, and the cold cut clean. My phone started buzzing, missed calls, voicemails, texts. Lindsay had finally broken her silence. Messages rolled in one after the other. "We need to talk. You really embarrassed the whole family." I didn't answer. Not yet. This time, I needed to do things my way. When I got back to the inn, I sat down at the little desk by the window. Opened my laptop. Scanned the letter. Then I started writing. Nothing dramatic. Nothing emotional. Just the facts. Just the truth. I posted it to my personal blog, the same one Diane used to read. Then I sent the link to everyone who sat around that table last night. And I waited. It only took about 4 hours for things to start moving. My cousin Derek was the first to reach out. We were never that close, but he'd always been kind to me in that neutral, I don't want trouble kind of way. His message was simple. "Jake, I didn't know. I'm sorry. That letter broke me. I should have stood up for you. We all should have." It was the first apology I'd heard in years. The next message came from Karen. Hers wasn't so nice. It was fake concern with a blade underneath. "You're making a mistake by sharing family matters like this. Do you really want to destroy something that can't be fixed?" I read it once, then deleted it. Because I didn't break anything. The cracks were already there, under every slammed door, every ignored message, every family dinner I wasn't invited to. I wasn't tearing the family apart. I was just refusing to keep pretending it hadn't already happened. Lindsay called later that evening. I almost didn't pick up. But curiosity won out. Her tone wasn't angry. "Not yet. Jake," she said. "I saw what you posted. That letter. I didn't read all of it, but..." "But what?" I asked. She paused. "I think we should talk. In person. Not online. This is a family matter," she said. I let that sit for a second, then answered calm but direct. "You had years to treat me like family. You had birthdays, holidays, a dozen reasons to pick up the phone or return a message. You didn't. You didn't thank me for the gifts I sent. You didn't check in. And worst of all, you buried the one thing Diane left just for me. Now that people are finally starting to see you for who you are, now you want to talk?" She didn't say anything right away. "You really want to fix this?" I asked. "Then own it. Be honest. Publicly. Tell everyone what you and Brenda did. I can't just... I mean..." She stammered. "You know how this looks, Jake. Everyone's judging us now." "Good," I said with no hesitation. "Maybe now you'll finally get a taste of what it felt like for me, year after year, when you all made me feel like an outsider at my own family table." She never called again after that. But some others did. And to be honest, they surprised me. My mom's old friend Helen reached out. I hadn't heard from her in years. She said reading the letter broke her down in tears. Told me that even before Diane got sick, she used to talk about how worried she was about the way Brenda treated me. Apparently, after Diane passed, she had asked Helen to stay close to me, to check in. But Brenda intercepted that too. Told her I needed space. Said I didn't want anyone around. That's what they all told themselves. That I needed space. And I let them believe it. Because back then, I didn't know the truth. But I do now. A few days later, I went back to the house, not to make peace, and sure as hell not for Matmas. I came with a purpose. Frank met me out front. He looked tired but clear. Like someone finally waking up after years of sleep. There inside. He told me. "Lindsay, Brenda, the rest left already." I nodded. "Let's do it." We walked in together. Brenda was pacing the living room with a drink in her hand, like she was rehearsing some big performance. Lindsay was hunched on the couch, red-eyed, like she'd been crying or fuming. Maybe both. I didn't give them the chance to start spinning it. "I'm taking legal action," I said plainly. I spoke to a lawyer. Hiding that letter? Intercepting Diane's communication? Maybe it's not a criminal act, but it's unethical as hell. And that gives me every reason to cut you out of any say in this family moving forward. Brenda blinked like she didn't hear right, then laughed once, sharp and fake. "Family decisions? You're barely part of this family." I smirked. "That's funny, considering I just reconnected with 10 relatives who disagree with you. Including Joyce. Remember her? She's flying in next month to visit. First time in 10 years. Funny thing is, she thought I was the one who cut her off." I let that hang in the air. Lindsay looked down. Frank stepped forward. "Things are changing," he said. "Starting today. That letter should have been given to Jake the moment it was found. The fact that it was hidden says everything. You two lost my trust. Frank, be reasonable." Brenda snapped. He shook his head. "No. You manipulated me. You convinced me my son didn't care. That he was selfish and distant. I let you fill the silence after we lost her. And I regret that every day. Then he turned to me. I'm rewriting the will, he said. Effective immediately. Lindsay's head jerked up. What? I don't trust you with anything tied to this family's legacy anymore, Frank said, cool and steady. Jake's the one who honored his mother's memory. He's the one who told the truth. Brenda sputtered, her voice rising. You're letting one letter undo everything? No, I said, stepping closer. You did that. Then I handed her a copy of the letter. Read it. Really read it. Then ask yourself how anyone could justify hiding this from the person it was written to. I didn't wait around after that. I walked out the front door one last time, head high, cold wind on my face, sun breaking through the clouds. And this time, I wasn't looking back. Weeks passed. Frank kept his word. The will was changed. We started meeting every Sunday, just him and me. Slowly but surely, we began to repair what had broken so long ago. One afternoon in February, he even joined me for a walk around the lake. The one Diane used to take me to when I was little. We talked about who she really was, not the version Brenda filtered and shaped over the years. Lindsay and Brenda tried damage control. Some weak apologies. A few vague attempts at pretending they wanted to patch things up. Lindsay even made a public post about forgiveness. But of course, she never once mentioned me by name. Didn't matter. Most people saw right through it. And for the first time, I didn't care. Because I finally understood something. Family isn't just about blood. It's not about who shows up to dinner or whose name is in the family group chat. It's about who stands beside you when the truth finally sees daylight. And thanks to that letter, my mom's final gift, I found my voice again. They tried to lock the door on me. But I walked through it anyway. And this time? I made sure it slammed shut behind me.